All right, hi guys. I just thought it's natural that if there's a talk on sex, money, and evolution in that track, makes more sense here, right? But let's get something straight here. My talk is not about pushing any sort of limits, physical limits or otherwise. Okay? And in case somebody gets stuck in some weird position like this, please call me. It's an awesome photo to put up here. My talk is not about motivation. We already got a lot of that from Michael in the morning. It's not about how to burn midnight oil. It's not about how to work really late, work really hard. And that, people, is a good friend of mine, Pradeep Elankumaram. He was a speaker last year at RubyConf. And he's slogging because at his new startup, Kicksend, I do ask you all to check it out. And Pradeep, I did some promotion for you, so forgive me. Well, he's laboring away here at night. And this is a photo taken at 4 o'clock in the morning. Speaking of labor, that's not the intention of the talk either. That's not the push it some more that I'm talking about. Okay? And for all those people who are musically inclined, it's not about this. It's not about the song. My name is Gautam Rege, no relation to the genre. And my talk here is very specifically about push technology. Okay? We've been residing in this era of laziness for a long time. We all know laziness is the mother of invention. And how often have you just thought, you know what, I wish I could just sit back, put my feet on the desk, and let the computer do the work. Right? It's a dream. Give it up. It's not for you. You got to slog your butt off. But there are people in this world who love this. The CFOs, CTOs, CEOs, CXOs, CISOs, all these kind of people love dashboards. They want to see, their dashboard screen saying, that guy's browsing on Facebook too much. Oh, that's some nasty little site. I don't know what that's about. And this guy's been sleeping. He's not logged into the system for so long. And they want real-time updates. I'm sure if I meet any CXOs later on, they're not going to give me their visiting card for sure. But it's good to look at the history of, push technology. In the ancient days, when man made the wheel, that's when he didn't have the internet. But according to the internet era, that's ancient enough for us. People used to poll. Anybody who doesn't know what polling is. Everybody knows what polling is. But as people grew lazier and smarter, they came to thinking, there are better ways to poll. Let's do some Ajax polling in the background. And still good, still heavy on the server. Send an HTTP request, an XML HTTP request. Hope for the best. Oh, nothing for you yet. And then people got even smarter and came to XHR Long Polling. How many of you all know what this is? Come on, guys. How many of you all know what this is? Even if you don't know, put up your hands. Well, it's very simple to explain actually. I asked this gentleman here, hey man, you got some feedback for me? No? Okay. Hey, you got some feedback for me? No? Okay. Hey, you got some feedback for me? Yes? Get on with your talk. That's polling or Ajax polling. Long polling is I asked this gentleman here, hey, you got some feedback for me? And he doesn't respond. He's waiting for somebody behind to pass him a post-it saying, give this feedback to him. And he's going to wait till he gets some feedback from somebody or till I get bored. In technical terms, timeout. So you got some feedback for me? You're waiting? And then he gets a post-it says, get on with your talk, seriously, man. All right. That's long polling. This is a technology used very often even today. Most of the sites which give you a lot of real-time statistics use this. But that's because a lot of browsers would not support anything more than this or anything beyond this. We want our servers to be light. This is what people made into a business. This is when they got serious about it. You had Flash, you had XMPP, you had Java applets, and this was the first a real push towards push technology where you could sit in your browser window and wait for something to happen. Not even long polling, but wait for something to happen. And when something happens, it comes back to you. Unfortunately, there are some installations required. You have to have Flash installed, you have to have JRE installed, the plugins. You need for XMPP, you have to have some servers set up. You have to have, there's a Ruby gem called Juggernaut which helps you out doing this, but it's still a lot of work. And then we think about it and say, like how do we move ahead of this? And that's what my talk is really about. It's about WebSockets, Node.js, and we all heard about Charles being saying it's a lot of hype, Node.js and all. I told him yesterday, you're really going to make my talk miserable. And I'm still thinking of some ways to get back at him, but he's just too nice a guy. But that's what my talk is about. It's going to be all about WebSockets, Node, and how things actually work, and the future of how web games can be built. WebSocket Handshake, everyone knows it. The moment I say WebSocket, everyone goes back. But if I ask you, hey, you remember your C program and you wrote sockets and said socket connect, bind, listen. Everyone has done that. Everyone knows what are sockets. Well, think of these as WebSockets. Sockets on the web browser. They actually work like standard WebSockets. You send an HTTP request. It connects to the server. Server says, hey, how you doing? I'm fine. And they're connected. It's a connected socket. There's a connection established. It's a bi-directional full duplex connection. So anyone, any party wants to send any information to either side, you can do it. And that's what gives us the edge. WebSockets, however, people saw this technology came out. It's pretty early. But people realized in early years that, this is pretty cool. Let's do it. But when they did it, there were a lot of serious concerns raised about security. There was some DNS proxy, cache poisoning and stuff like that, and people got it out of the browsers. It was not because of the technology. It was about RFC implemented the wrong way or not completely thought about. It was something that happened too quick. The world was not ready for it. The browsers are not ready for it. Welcome to today's world. It's a different story. Even our most favorite browser, Internet Explorer, has said that in IE10 they'll be supporting WebSockets. So Chrome has been supporting WebSockets for a long time. Opera had supported, but they disabled it by default. But as of maybe a year from now, all browsers are going to start supporting WebSockets completely and fully. Enter server-side JavaScripting. Oh wait, did I say server-side JavaScript? I thought JavaScript was that thing you add in your browser to do some fancy stuff like moving things around and stuff. What happened to server-side JavaScript? JavaScript is a very powerful language. And it is so powerful that it can virtually let you do anything that you want. Now, which language doesn't say that about itself? But JavaScript gives us the additional ability to be event-driven. So it's functional programming plus speed plus less memory, high concurrency they talk about, and I don't have the benchmarks to prove it here, but I was trying to search the net because I had to talk about something else here. But they said it's about 8 to 10,000 concurrent connections. Now, if I'm going to run a server which is going to consume like 10 megabytes of memory at most and serve about 8 to 10,000 concurrent requests, I'm happy. And we'll be seeing a few snippets of the Node.js code, and you'll see how less complicated it is. Socket.io is another component which is built as part of Node modules. So when you install Node, you have to use a command called, you install Node and you have npm, which installs all these other modules. One of the modules is Socket.io, which actually does the WebSocket stuff. It builds you bidirectional full duplex sockets. It's supported in all browsers. It has a fallback on transports. That means suppose you have an older browser which doesn't support WebSockets, it can fall back to Flash sockets or long polling and stuff like that. So it has a neat little fall through which will help you solve this problem of even browser compatibility. I thought this was a RubyConf. I'm talking about JavaScript. Well, initially I thought I was going to use a little bit of a Rails application and do this. Then I found Express.js and said, you know what, since I'm doing Node, let's just do the whole thing. So the call for proposals, I put up the stock, got selected. You know what? There's no Ruby in it. There's no Rails in it. So why am I here? There is no Ruby and no Rails, it's just JavaScript. It's just Node and the power of Node. And isn't that the entire point? I remember Charles in his talk said, you attend other conferences and talk about Ruby. I'm attending Ruby and talking about JavaScript. Like that sucks, man. And I'm organizing this. My God, what am I doing? But But this is how it works. This is not about the language. This is not about the technology. This is about evolution. This is how we evolve fast. Ruby and Rails, for that matter, have been the fastest proponents of trying to absorb new things. Integrating this into a Rails application is a trivial job. In fact, it is so trivial that, like Rails 3.2 already bundles in the jQuery. Node already has support for jQuery. You can easily communicate with each other, and things just work. In the essence of keeping things completely homogeneous, I used Express.js. Express.js is the web development framework. I wouldn't say framework, but it's web development module for Node. It looks at, just like if you have seen a Sinatra application, it has routes, and you do your processing in that. Very, very lightweight web development. You can pass it, get parameters, post parameters, and then I said, why do I need Rails then? Let's just do this in pure Node and Node only. Lots of talking. Time for action. Don't misunderstand. Don't misunderstand the action, okay? We're going to get into some sort of a demo now, and this is a good time to see if you all have your Wi-Fi enabled or your laptops enabled with connected to the Wi-Fi, because we are going to play a game. We're going to actually have a game here, fingers crossed, and I'm going to have you guys participating in that game. So if you are connected to the web right now and connect to the Wi-Fi, I'm good enough. I've set it up on my local machine. What we're going to do is tap it. We're going to dance. So I have built a Node server which on every request creates a new dance floor. The dance floor will be visible here. And every time you have a dance floor, it gives you a new unique ID and adds a few subscribe commands. Well, like I said, it's not Rails. So I said, let's push the metal one step further. And I'm using Redis as my backend, for my database. But I'm using Redis as the pub sub. How many of you know what is publish subscribe? All right, cool. So you all know that when you want to subscribe for some specific events, only if you have those particular events will you get it. All right, it's not a broadcast. It's a publish and subscribe mechanism. So Redis has this awesome pub-sub capabilities which I just wanted to leverage. I could have written it myself in a loop, but then I said, you have Redis, why not use it? Redis is an in-memory database which, in addition to its blazing speed, provides pub-sub functionality. So if this dance floor here subscribed for such kind of wild-carded events, the ID is the actual unique ID. That is not how you write, that's not the syntax. But you use a star, that is the wildcard there, and it subscribes for different actions of the game. It prints out, spews out a unique ID. And that unique ID would be used for people to join in. When you join in, you just publish, it publishes an event that the user is joined in, and the user is seen on the dance floor. This is your personal one-to-one full bi-directional connected socket with the application. Similarly, if you want to do some actions, you send some particular action and it will make a change there. This is not a web request, it is not an HTTP request, it's not an Ajax request, it's a WebSocket event subscriber which is managing that request. Similarly, you have a lot of people there. All right. Now let's get on the dance floor and what's the title of my talk? Push it some more. Okay, let's do that. I have a game. That's the unique ID. What I'm going to do is help you out in typing. I'm actually going to tweet that link. Sorry, we did something wrong. Try sending a tweet again in a minute. That's Twitter for me, that's not me. Alright, if somebody can just tweet that link, it'll be really helpful. You know what? If you all have smartphones, try it on your phone. Should be fun because you can try this on your phone too. You should see something like this. Let me try it out. The reason I mention a mobile phone is because if your phones are by default, all smartphones today are HTML5 compliant. So they're definitely going to support this. All right. So if you type that URL and type game/sy, hey, I like the nick. There's a VI in it. You'll see a page coming up. I hope I'm connected to the Wi-Fi. Yeah. No, yeah, I got the demo right. Anybody getting it on the laptop? All right. It's, oh man, it's redirecting to the site there. Yeah, well, this is going to be fun. I have 201.160. Are you all connected to the net? You know what? Let me push it to the. What is not happening? The link's not opening? I'm not connected to the net, man. Okay. This is what happens when you do a live demo and live through it. All right, let me try it from here. Guys, in case you've noticed that every time the game has changed, okay, the game ID is changed. Sorry about that. I will try it out from here. You should see some Twitter handle like this. Right. Now, this is a different browser. If I click on any of this, it actually changes. I'm using my keyboards. I'm using my keyboard here itself. I can keep it moving. This is not a refresh. All right. And if somebody can try it out, we'll see it about, otherwise we'll see how this actually works. And while I'm answering questions, we'll probably see the demo again and figure out how these things are working. So back to the presentation. What just happened? This is a snippet of being completely event driven about how Node can actually just help you do things. This is simple. If you look at the code on top, it looks like app.post, standard routing URL that you have, and you can actually enter the game by processing it from there. If you notice that there are no if loops here, this is all about a function which adds another function. Right here from this is another function which has another function inside it, and that's how Node actually works. This is event-driven function, event-driven programming, where you have a function which processes something, you can pass another function to it, and it'll actually work on it. A little bit of the socket IO code. You can have sockets which can send messages, it can emit messages, it can publish, and it can subscribe. And if you actually have to see the code, this code looks like this. How many lines of code do you think I wrote for this server? There you go, nothing. And that's a new one. Node didn't do that, okay? And that's not me either. So this is the cool part about organizing an event. Everyone's talks go off smooth, except yours. Guys, anything happening there? Maybe the cable is loose here. Okay, pardon the interruption. Yeah. Well, it is working for so long, so. No, it's not the adapter. I think it's a cable issue somewhere. You know, I am so happy that if something like this had to happen, it happens in my talk because I can't complain about my own work. Okay, let's not touch that. Is there a ghost around here? Alrighty, that was cool. N 7 Y 1 4. Yeah. No, I think there's some connectivity problem here. Yeah, it's open, man. In fact, you know what? I was sitting in the previous talk there, it was working. Don't they all say that? How often have managers in the room heard that before? That's the host and the interface it should be working on. 20192.168.201.160. 192.168.201.160. There is no firewall on this. So if you're connected to the net, let me try that one out. Hey, hang on, I just realized this could be one of those things. We are doing good on time. It's 12:30, so I do have time to debug on stage and show you my debugging skills. Let's go. Which one? All right, cool. Check this one out. No, I think it was the Wi-Fi thing. I just disconnected and connected again. Yeah. Hey, this is on. Well, if one person connect, I'm sure somebody else can too. There we go. All right, go for it, people. I'm sure there are more than this in the crowd. And if somebody can tweet that link, it's just easier for you to just click on your phone and get onto it. I'd love it if somebody tried it out from different devices because I could only try it out from my iPhone and the Android. Alrighty. Well, if you're on your laptop, try to use the keyboard. It should be fun. For some reason, I still can't connect from my phone. There you go. Hey, but that's not my file. That's not my problem, people. It's Node 4. Alrighty, there you go. We're go for it. Oh, jeez. Change the URL. Sorry. But I had to put that URL. Ooh, I like that. It's almost close. Huh? That's OPF1 0R. Sorry, OPF1OR. Somebody's fast. And somebody's been trying too many stunts. Because believe it or not, that's the first time I've seen too many files error. Somebody's dancing too fast. Have we hit the file limit again? There you go. I can't help this, man. So it's you? So it's you? Alright, I got a test out on iPad, man. I don't have an iPad. Any volunteers to give me an iPad, please? No. Give me an iPad. You know, it's all in the interest of good development practices. Well, this is good stuff. It speaks a lot about why I should have used a Rails application in the first place. Not quite. So, well, this code is really this small. And I had to do a lot of research to get this going. But when I look at the code, I say, it's not enough to actually come here and show, what, I did so much. And it feels good when you have a lot of things which you already got. It feels good when it's all prepared, it's all ready for you. And it feels really good when it works sometimes. So I'm open for questions. Thank you. Yes, sir. Should give credits where they do. Stand up now.
Hi Gautam.
Hi.
Just to stir the pot as a Rubyist. So by the way, I also love Node.js, and I also did certain kind of an application called really real-time collaboration data based on Node.js like 2 years ago. So, but based on my experience and maybe as putting the hat as a Rubyist. So my question would be like, why didn't you attempt to go with Ruby based on event machine and fibers? Like Node.js is cool, but why did you suggested to go with a callback spaghetti instead of going with Ruby? You have good frameworks nowadays like Goliath and Cramp, which can handle push all sort of WebSockets based stuff pretty easily, like without going to callback spaghetti. So what made the choice there? Like, did you did research on the Goliath and Cramp stack, or did you just jump into the Node.js because of the hype? Or I just wonder.
I'd love to say I did the research.
Okay.
I'd love to say that, but we've tried a little bit of stunts on event machine. It works fine. It works fine. It works perfectly fine. When you want to do something different, I wanted to actually see how Node is going to scale with the web, with WebSockets, because I'll give you the history of how this idea came up. Whoops! I was supposed to play the game. I was supposed to play the song. So how this idea came up was because one of our friends is into the iPad. So one of our friends is into interactive gaming. But this is not the kind of gaming that we talk about of multiplayer games. This is the kind of interaction game and you want some people in a room to be engaged. Okay, that's how we started, and we needed it to be lightweight. We needed it to be scalable. Let's not talk about that for some time, but but we had to keep a situation where it should work on a mobile, it should work on any sort of device with minimal overhead, zero installation, and such kind of stuff. So we definitely we knew that we could easily use an event machine behind, but then the processing power behind that was not worth it for such a kind of application where I want to do is send lots of messages, lots of tiny messages to a lot of people. So where does this go from here? The future of this actually resides with trying to be in the online multiplayer web gaming space. Online multiplayer web gaming space. Imagine if you had to play Counter-Strike without doing any sort of installation on your machine, just log in to an application and play it. The rendering can be as heavy as you want using all sorts of JavaScript components and any other component that you can, but you can actually hit it from there. So we didn't do extensive research on event machine, but we just felt it too powerful or too heavy for sending just a lot of large messages across the wire from machines, from peer to peer. Yes, sir.
Could you talk a little bit about the limitations of WebSocket? You already referenced browser support is definitely a constraint. We may have to wait till IE10 to support a larger user base. But from a technical perspective, for example, how many open sockets can your server handle?
So it's how I configure it here. And to be honest, I've tested it out earlier. Okay, I tested it out and we were able to see a lot of connections here. You don't very often get too many files open error. We've tested it out. There is absolutely no limitation of node. When people have done benchmarks of 8 to 10,000 concurrent connections, failing at that small number is probably a bug in my code. Okay. The other part, this part of node, the other sort of WebSockets. WebSockets were considered tremendously insecure to an extent that it drove a lot of people away. It was immature at that time, but people are coming back. People are coming back to WebSockets with a bang. Welcome to HTML5. HTML5 has a lot of support for this. It has a lot of proponents which will help WebSockets actually do their thing in the future. So Node is good as it is. Node is good where it stands. Node is good for scaling. But programming in Node, programming JavaScript with functional programming is a decently high learning curve. If there's a divide, if there is something that I have to compare, it's that learning curve. And believe me, it was not easy for me too. We are just used to procedural code. And when you start seeing a function called on server actually invokes something on the client and does something, comes back and processes it, it actually blows your mind out a little bit. But once you get used to it, it's pretty good, it's pretty fast.
Sure, and if I understand correctly, you do not need to couple WebSockets with Node.js. You should be able to use any other technology.
Absolutely. In fact, I found using Socket.io, Express.js, these are really helpful for me. In the web page here, it's only Socket.io which is connecting. It's connecting to the initial web part, which I use Express.js, and then it's Socket.io talking all the way.
Are there any fallback strategies so that you can support?
Yes, in fact, Socket.io itself has a fallback strategy. So it's initially WebSockets. If WebSockets are not supported, it falls back to Flash sockets. If Flash sockets are not supported, it falls back to XHR polling. That's long polling. If it's not supported long polling, there are a couple of other strategies that go down the track. But it tries as much as it can. Any other questions? Mr. iPad. Yes, I was going to talk to Pusher, but it'll not actually get into the right space. So Pusher.com is an awesome service, but it's probably misplaced here because they have a different way of doing things. They use WebSockets in the front. So if I'm talking only about Node, it might not all be perfect into their architecture because they do not just Node, they do a lot of other things. But on Pusher.com is an online portal which helps you do push notifications as a paid service online. So you can actually try it out by going to pusher.com and just put in a URL, and from the command line you can actually push something onto your web page here. It has a lot of authentication keys and setup in the URL, so the URL looks kind of ugly, but it does what it does. I realized that if I have to promote pusher.com, I could probably get some sponsorship from them. But so my talk, I changed my talk a little bit to talk on Node and how it's done rather than who does it. Any other questions? If you're not, thank you so much. I know you guys are all really hungry, and let's grab some good lunch. All right, thanks guys.